Hi friends, Allie here. In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to crochet this cute coaster. This is the Loopy Coaster and we'll be making this yellow and white checkered one today, but you can use any colors or just one color. I made a few here, so the one on the left, I started with the yellow color for color A and used the white for color B, and I used color A for the border. Then for the coaster on the right, it's just the opposite. So I used the white for color A and used it for the border. Then the yellow was color B. So feel free to switch it up and use your colors however you'd like, or you can even use a solid color too, just like this one. This pattern uses a variation of the puff stitch to create a really nice texture. This stitch has this loose loop that pokes out, so that's where I came up with the name Loopy Coaster. This whole coaster just uses that one stitch, so this pattern is super easy and works up quick. You can make just one coaster or make a set. These would be perfect for giving as gifts, say for maybe a housewarming gift, or you can make them for your own home or sell them at your craft fairs and markets. I always use cotton yarn for my coasters, so for this pattern I'm using my favorite cotton yarn, Dishy from We Crochet and Knit Picks. These are the colors Butterscotch, Swan, and Inlet. If you want to check out this yarn, I'll put a link to it down below. It comes in a huge variety of colors and I love the feel of it. It's perfect for coasters, dishcloths, or anything you want a durable cotton yarn for, so I highly recommend it. If you are making these coasters for gifts or to sell, then you may like these wrap labels I have for coasters. These are available in my Etsy shop as a digital download, so you can print these off at home and use to package your coasters. They make your product look so much more professional and it helps people know exactly what they're getting. I'll link to these down below if you want to check them out. If you want to follow along with the free written pattern for the Loopy Coaster, you can find it on my website, theturtletrunk.com, or grab the ad-free printable PDF from my Etsy and Ravelry shops. Now, if you're ready to get started, let's head over to our supply list and let's get making. For this pattern, you will need medium 4-weight cotton yarn, a 4mm or G crochet hook, a yarn needle, and scissors. Begin by making a slip knot on your hook with color A yarn. Then chain 16. You can adjust the length of your coaster by working a chain however long that you'd like. If making a checkered coaster, you'll want your chain to be a multiple of 3 plus 1. Now for row 1, we'll be working back into our foundation chain. We're going to be working 3 puff stitches in color A, then 3 in color B, and alternate that across the row. Like I said earlier, the puff stitch we'll be using is one of many variations of a puff stitch, so it may be worked different than puff stitches you've used before. I kind of just came up with this stitch on my own while making this pattern, then tried looking it up to see what it's called, and I think technically it is a closed 2 half double crochet puff stitch. There could be a different name for this stitch, so if you recognize it as something else, please let me know, but I'll just be referring to it as a puff stitch for this pattern for ease. So let me show you how we're going to work this stitch. It's quite easy and we'll create like a wide half double crochet stitch. So for our first stitch, we'll be working into the second chain from the hook. Be sure for this first stitch that the loop on your hook is quite loose. Then yarn over and insert your hook into the second chain from the hook. Then yarn over and pull up a loop. You should have 3 loops on your hook. Then yarn over and insert your hook back into the same chain we just worked into. Then yarn over, pull up a loop. Now we have 5 loops on our hook. Yarn over and pull through the first 4 loops on your hook. Now you'll have 2 loops on your hook. Finally, yarn over and pull through the last 2 loops on your hook. And there we have 1 puff stitch. So now we're going to work 2 more puff stitches with our color A yarn. And on that third puff stitch, we'll change to our color B yarn. You can see on the front of the stitch that little loop that pokes out on the front, which is going to give us a really cool texture. So I'll show you again how to work our puff stitch. So now working into the next chain, we're going to yarn over and insert your hook into the next chain. Then yarn over and pull up a loop. There are 3 loops on the hook now. Yarn over and insert your hook into the same chain. Yarn over, pull up a loop. Now we have 5 loops on the hook. Yarn over and pull through the first 4 loops on your hook. Then yarn over, pull through the last 2 loops on your hook. There is our second puff stitch. So we're going to work 1 more with our color A yarn. And on the final pull through of the stitch, we'll change colors. So yarn over and insert your hook into the next chain. Yarn over and pull up a loop. Yarn over and insert your hook into that same chain. Yarn over and pull up a loop. Yarn over, pull through the first 4 loops on your hook. And before we do that final pull through, we're going to change colors. So drop your color A yarn and pick up your color B yarn. And do that final pull through with color B. Now we'll do the next 3 puff stitches with color B. Since we'll be alternating between color A and B, we're going to be working around the non-working strand as we continue across. So as we're working our puff stitches with color B, the color A strand will be carried across under the stitches so that when we need to change back to it, it's right there ready for us. So let's work our next puff stitch. So with color B, yarn over and insert your hook into the next chain, making sure to work around that color A strand. Yarn over and pull up a loop. Yarn over, insert your hook back into that same chain. Yarn over and pull through the first 4 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through the last 2 loops on your hook. Then we're going to work another puff stitch with our color B yarn. You can give a little tug on that non-working yarn because sometimes it gets a little slack in those stitches. So just pull it lightly. Yarn over, insert your hook into the next chain, working around that non-working yarn strand. Pull up a loop, yarn over, insert your hook into that same chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through the first 4 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through the last 2 loops on your hook. There we have our second puff stitch. Then we'll work our third puff stitch, again changing colors on that final pull through. Yarn over, insert your hook into the next chain, yarn over, pull up a loop. Yarn over, insert your hook into the same chain, yarn over, pull up a loop. Yarn over, pull through the first 4 loops on your hook. Drop your color B yarn and do that final pull through with your color A yarn. And there we go. So I think you're getting the point. So we're just going to continue this across. So working 3 puff stitches with our color A, then 3 puff stitches with color B, and repeat that all the way to the end. So I'm going to continue on and I'll catch up with you at the end of row 1. I'm just on the last stitch of row 1, and I'm going to change to color B on that final pull through of the last stitch, because we're going to be using color B for our first square for row 2. So do that final pull through with color B, and here is row 1 of our Loopy Coaster. You should have a total of 15 stitches across. So now we are going to chain 1 and turn. And for row 2, we're just going to do the same thing, but we're just going to alternate the colors. So we're going to start with color B, so work 3 puff stitches with color B, then 3 with color A, and repeat that across. So the chain 1 at the beginning of the row does not count as a stitch, so we're going to work our first puff stitch into the last stitch from the previous row. You also want to remember to bring up that non-working yarn strand. So when I work my first puff stitch, I'm going to remember to bring up that non-working yarn strand and work around that so that it's up for row 2 when we need to change to it. So work 3 puff stitches across with color B, then change to color A, work 3 puff stitches with color A, and then we're just going to alternate that across for row 2. So I'm going to continue on and I'll catch up with you at the end of row 2. I'm just on the last stitch of row 2. And on that final pull through of the last stitch, we're going to change to color A. So here's what we're looking like after row 2. You can chain 1 and turn. Now on to row 3. For row 3, we're going to do the same thing, but now starting with color A. So we'll work 3 puff stitches with color A, then 3 with color B. And we're just going to repeat this all the way up until the end of row 7. So we're going to keep repeating these rows, starting with color A, and then changing to color B, and just continue until we reach the end of row 7. Just don't forget to carry up your non-working yarn and work your stitches around that strand, and then just keep alternating your colors. So I'm going to continue and I'll catch up with you at the end of row 7, then I'll show you how you can put a border on your coaster. I'm just on the last stitch of row 7. Here I'm going to finish off with my color A yarn because that's the color I want to use for my border. If you want to use a different color for your border, then just do that final pull through with whatever color you want to use for the border. So here I have my 7 rows completed. I'm going to cut off my color B yarn, leaving a long enough tail that I can weave it in. And now we'll move on to our border. If you don't want to add a border, you can just cut off your yarn and weave in your ends and leave it as is, or you can add any border that you'd like. I'm just going to do a simple slip stitch border. So I'll show you how I'm going to do that. I'm going to start working down the left side of my coaster. And since these stitches, our puff stitches, are a little bit taller of a stitch, I'm going to work 2 slip stitches on the edge of each row down. So we have 7 rows. I'm going to work a total of 14 slip stitches down the side of our coaster. So just as evenly as you can, work 14 slip stitches down the left side of the coaster. I like to just grab 2 loops on the very edge of the coaster. So just working on the sides of the puff stitches, trying to grab 2 loops there and just loosely work your slip stitch. Then I'm just going to move a little bit down and work the next one. And then I'm just going to go all the way across until I reach the first corner. Once you reach the corner, we're going to work a slip stitch, chain 1 slip stitch into that corner stitch. So I've already worked my slip stitch, so I'm going to chain 1 and then work another slip stitch into that corner. And that's just going to help us turn the corner there. Now working across the bottom of our coaster, we're just going to work 1 slip stitch in each stitch across the bottom. When you reach the next corner, we're going to slip stitch, chain 1, slip stitch again in that corner. And then working up the right side of the coaster, we're going to do the same thing we did on the left, where you work 2 slip stitches in each row up the right side of the coaster. Again, in the next corner, slip stitch, chain 1, slip stitch, and then 1 slip stitch in each stitch across the top of our coaster. So I'm going to continue around and I'll catch back up with you when we reach the top of our coaster. So I'm just finishing up my slip stitches on the top of the coaster. So when you get back to the beginning where you first started the border, we're going to do a slip stitch, chain 1 slip stitch into that last corner. Then you can cut off your yarn, leaving a long enough tail that you can weave it in. Pull that through with your hook. Then I'm going to take that tail end and insert that through the top of the first slip stitch we worked for our border. So that first one on the left side of our coaster, just going through that V right in the middle, I'm going to pull that yarn through there. And that just finishes up our border, keeping it nice and clean. And then you can weave in all of your tail ends on the back side of your coaster. And there we have our Loopy Coaster. Now you can make more for a set if you'd like, or make some different colors. I'd love to see your photos of your finished coaster, so be sure to tag me on Instagram and Facebook so I can see your finished projects. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget you can find this free crochet pattern and many more free crochet patterns on my website, theturtletrunk.com. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.